I want to introduce our next two speakers, Gaelle Mellis and Beth Neate. Gaelle is an award-winning designer, thought leader and highly sought after disability advocate and consultant, and she will be speaking with her colleague Beth, who is a consumer advocate and disability ally. Beth is a non-executive board director of Neate Arts. So two amazing humans from Neate Arts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm just going to say up front, I've got some notes because I can talk underwater and I can get easily distracted, so it's much better that I refer to this so we keep it on time. Yeah, so we'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this place now called South Australia and all First Peoples living and working on this land. We celebrate the history and contemporary creativity of the world's oldest living culture and pay respects to elders past, present and future. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So I'm Gaelle Mellis. I'm a very proud disabled person and I'm currently the creative director of Neate Arts. I think you saw some of our singers yesterday, or some of you would have. So Neate Arts is South Australia's only multi-arts organisation where learning disabled and neurodivergent artists create visual art, theatre, music, screen, dance and have lots of fun playing with arts and technology. And it's our vision to see learning disabled and neurodivergent people seize their rightful place at the centre of arts and culture.
Thanks, Gaelle. So I'm Beth Neate and I'm a proud disability ally. You can stay there. Thanks, Gaelle. I'm a proud disability ally and consumer advocate, and through having a disabled child, I've had the great privilege of connecting with the disability community and learning from disability advocates. I have the great privilege also of being a board director at Neate Arts, and this incredible work that you see behind us is the work of First Nations artist Jackie Saunders from Neate Arts, and you'll see lots of other work from Neate artists throughout our presentation.
So, disability is not a problem to be cured, but it's part of our identity and diversity. Many disabled people are impacted by the medical system, public policies and systems of power, and are often left with stigmatised identities. Disability also intersects with different diversity dimensions, such as race, gender, sexuality and age, to create unique experiences and perspectives. 1 in 5, so that's over 4 million people in Australia, are disabled. 88% is hidden. And most Australians will spend 7 to 8 years of their life with an impairment. UN statistics say about 16% of people globally are disabled. That is over 1.3 billion people, 1 in 6 globally, and that number is increasing. So despite being the world's biggest minority, disabled people are often forgotten. But disabled people are never just disabled people. We are diverse, we cross all demographics and participate in the world in many different ways. We shed light on a different aspect of human experience and contribute to the richness and diversity of society. And I'd just like to start by asking you some questions, and if you can keep thinking about this through the panel, through this session. Question 1, are we all equal? Question 2, have I gone jumped? I can't read down there. Question 2, is the goal to make all disabled people normal? And question 3, that's what's on the screen?
Yeah.
Question 2 is up. Mm-hmm. I only need these for here and down here.
You're
it's
good.
All blurry.
One more time,
Yeah. And this is the most important one. Do you have any disabled friends? Not a member of your family or a colleague or a client, but a friend. If you don't have a disabled friend, I ask you to keep thinking about why you don't have disabled friends. And there's a non-disabled person 2 rows back, and she's my friend. So she's got a good answer. I'm going to hand over to Beth.
Thank you. Thanks.
And we're going to hear a bit about Beth's story.
So like Gaelle, I can also talk underwater, and I never use notes when I speak, but today I want to tell you a story, and I want to read you the story because it's actually my story. So the reason I'm here talking to you is that I am the parent of an extraordinary, hilarious, charismatic and one-of-a-kind disabled child. And I love this child enthusiastically and fiercely, just as I love my other non-disabled child. Today, I'm a proud disability ally, and I'm loud and proud. I seek out opportunities and places for my child to be with her community, and I'm making sure that she's going to grow up with disabled friends, disabled peers, and disabled mentors. My life has been enriched and expanded to see the beauty and imagination of human diversity in all its forms. But I wasn't always like this. When I was pregnant, like many parents, I held dreams and hopes for my unborn child. But the most important thing I hoped for was a healthy baby. That was my number one wish. That's the thing we say, isn't it? We do all the things to make sure we have a healthy baby, and we don't think about the alternatives. We give up soft cheese, and we don't read those chapters in the baby books. So, when I did have a medically complex child, I found myself completely unprepared. My child was not healthy, and across her first year, she was diagnosed with multiple and lifelong impairments. I can tell you, honestly, those first few weeks, months and years were absolutely terrifying and completely isolating. The shocks came in waves with no time to recover. I had the same hormonal changes and sleep deprivation as all other new parents, but my total focus was on a very sick, very tiny baby that needed many tests. With each new diagnosis, my perception of my perfect baby was shattered. And with every medical appointment, I felt more and more distance from her. Instead of bonding with my child, I was afraid of her. I saw her as a problem that needed to be fixed. Before my daughter was born, I'd thought that I was a pretty progressive and accepting sort of a person. I'd studied, travelled the world, lived in remote Aboriginal communities. I'd even worked for the United Nations, for goodness sake. But what I learned about myself in those first few months was something very ugly. I'm going to admit something to you. When it was me who had the unhealthy baby, I discovered that I was ableist. At that time, I knew very little about disability, and what I did know was based on biased assumptions and negative stereotypes. I saw disability as a tragedy. Ask yourself honestly, do you think disability means less?
I want to touch on a word that Beth just used, the word ableist. So the world wasn't built with disabled people in mind, and because of that, the world we live in is inherently ableist. Ableism is the discrimination of and social prejudice against disabled people based on the belief that non-disabled people typically are superior. At its heart, ableism is rooted in the assumption that disabled people require fixing and defines people by their impairment. Like racism and sexism, ableism classifies entire groups of people as less than, and it includes harmful stereotypes, misconceptions, and generalisations of disabled people. So I was asked here today to talk about a model of disability, and we'll get to that in a minute. So probably a lot of you would be aware that models of disability are just frameworks developed in order to understand the way society works and interacts with disability. And it's important to note that these have changed over time and continue to evolve. We're currently stuck in a few. The charity model of disability. The charity model is based on pity and fears, not rights. And families are made to feel shame and a personal tragedy of having to look after an eternal child. And then the medical model. So this is one major way where disabled people have been lumped together, is in the medical model, with its underlying assumptions that people are disabled by their impairments or differences. Disability is a deficit that makes you abnormal. You need to be cured or fixed, even when your impairment or difference does not cause pain or illness. It's about what our bodies and minds can't do. We can't make decisions about our own lives. We will never be equal with non-disabled people, and that the disabled person needs to change and adapt, not society. People with disability are thought to be different to what is normal, therefore abnormal. And disability is seen as a problem of the individual. Well, let's think more deeply about disability. The framework that aids us to understand the problems of disability and helps us understand the best solutions to disability is the social model of disability. Disabled people developed the social model of disability, and they did so in order to challenge the medical model of disability view that we are in a constant state of illness, and that is our impairments and bodies and minds and senses which are the problem. The origins of this approach started in the 60s and 70s, but the specific term originated in the United Kingdom in 1983 when disabled academic Mike Oliver coined the phrase social model of disability in reference to ideological developments. So one of a useful and progressive way to understand disability is to make a clear distinction between disability and impairment. In making this distinction, disability and impairment are defined the following ways. So impairment is the body. It's, if you think of it like the biological, so it's a medical condition, illness, injury, that will or is likely to impact on how the body and mind works. Disability, on the other hand, is actually the limitation and exclusion of someone with an impairment to access opportunities and take part in society on an equal basis as a result of barriers. Disabled people use the term impairment to talk about our medical condition or the diagnosis or description of our functioning. On the other hand, we talk about disability because it describes the social effects of our impairments. Disability is not a description of a personal characteristic. A disabled person is also not a person with a disability, as the person does not own disability in the way you might be a person with brown hair. We use the word disability to mean oppression. Under the social model, a named individual is the person. The impairment is their functioning, and disability is society's barriers. Additionally, discrimination and barriers plus oppression equal disability. When we talk about people, we're talking about citizens, and access will achieve equality for us. Disability is redefined as a social, not an individual issue, and barriers are not the inevitable outcome of having an impairment, but are socially created through society not taking into consideration the requirements of people with impairments. In summary, the social model of disability, the problem is not the individual, involves everybody in identifying solutions, and acknowledges people's rights to full participation as citizens. There's lots of language about disability, that's a whole conversation by itself, but I use the term, it's an identity language, that I'm a disabled person. And discovering the social model of disability allowed me to get rid of any shame I held. Beth's going to talk to us about. I forgot about this one. Sorry. So the medical model of disability asks what's wrong with you, and the social model asks what's wrong with society. So we've got a jar here, one of my favourite things, and under the medical model, it says to me, you've got weak hands and you can't open the jar. Under the social model, I say the packaging needs to be redesigned. And now over to Beth.
Thank you. So now I want to share how the social model helped me. As Gaelle said, 1 in 6 people around the world experience significant disability. That's 1.3 billion people, the largest minority in the world. But unlike other identities, disabled children are not always born to disabled parents. And I didn't have the knowledge or the skills or the experience or the politics to help my child learn about her identity. So I've had to seek that out. Disability elders, like Gaelle Mellis, have taught me how to reframe my thinking, to view disability as the avant-garde, to realise that when you chuck out the rule book and presume excellence, that the possibilities are infinite. The social model has taught me how to be a disability ally and to amplify disabled voices, to have the language to teach both my children how to think and speak confidently about disability, to ditch the label special needs and talk about disability rights. I'm still learning from disabled people about how to do this better, but I love this learning and I will never stop this learning. Embracing the social model means losing the preconceptions, losing the expectations of my imagined child. It doesn't deny the reality of her impairments or the impacts of those impairments on her as an individual or on us as a family. Instead, it enables me to see my child for who she is, a whole person, a person with possibilities. The medical model is a very myopic lens, but we all know that the world is a lot messier and more beautiful and more diverse than we dare to dream. The social model has taught me that disability is not a dirty word, it's not frightening, it's not alien, it's a community, it's an identity, it's a way of experiencing the world, and it's part of being human.
Disabled people have to fight for their right to exist in this world. Most disabled people are born into normal families and grow up with the same fears and prejudices and shame around disability as non-disabled people. And I'm going to jump because we're going to run out of time. And I've talked about stigmatised identities before with the interactions that we have. So to gain a healthy sense of self-identity becomes a conscious action by disabled people. The term disabled, however, is linked to cultural identity and a way of being. Western culture is awash with negative image of disabled people. Therefore, it is a predominantly non-disabled culture that reflects the norms and values of non-disabled people. Disability culture, on the other hand, emerged from the International Disabled Peoples Movement, reflecting the norms and values of disabled people and their allies. For many disabled people, disability isn't just a diagnosis, it's an intrinsic part of who we are. And just a question, are you aware of the disability pride movement? Hard to imagine we might have a pride movement. Pathetic people, disabled people can be. Yeah, we have a pride movement, and it rejects the exclusions and the microaggressions that tell us something is wrong with us. Disability pride is defined as accepting and honouring each person's uniqueness and seeing it as a natural and beautiful part of human diversity. I would like to share a final stanza of a beloved poem within the disability community. It was written by Laura Hershey, a disabled Colorado-based writer, poet, activist and consultant who is no longer with us. The poem is called You Get Proud by Practicing, because I've jumped a whole slide. Oh God. Remember, you weren't the one who made you ashamed, but you are the one who can make you proud. Just practice. Practice until you get proud, and once you are proud, keep practicing so you don't forget. You get proud by practicing. And that's what a lot of disabled people do and need to do in this world.
Play the video.
Would you like us to finish on a video?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll jump ahead. Sorry, we had timed this and we thought we got right on time, but the video's going to take us a little over. I might just tell you my joke, though. Well, it's not that sort of a funny joke, really, but there is a joke against disabled people that non-disabled people listen to music, do the gardening, hold down jobs, but disabled people do music therapy, horticultural therapy and occupational therapy. Mm-hmm. Where disabled people are involved, almost every activity of life seems to be justified in terms of its medical and therapeutic benefits. And do you know some of these terms? They might sound familiar to some of it. Delay, deformity, deficit, disfigurement, abnormality, may never walk, talk, or do things normally. So we just want to share with you the work of some Turi artists who have been told this their whole lives. And fingers crossed it's going to work. I'll take my glasses off. So sorry, we've gone over time and we had even more to do. But we've got an invitation for you all. And we'd like you all to be curious about the social model of disability and lean into disability. And your first homework assignment is to watch Crip Camp. It's available on Netflix. Thank you. Oh, you don't need it.
Thank you so much. What a great film. You know, when you gave us a challenge, Gaelle, you know, do we have friends, you know, that have a disability? I think it's a good challenge to put out there. Someone said to me, I had a conversation with someone last week, and I'm on the board of a disability service called Kudos, and it was through that someone said to me, my neighbour has an intellectual disability and they really want to play pool. Do you know of anywhere that they could play pool? And I said, I think that's called a pub.
Yay.